Installing solar panels on your own property can get you accused of threatening the energy security of your entire neighborhood, at least. That's the little surprise I got the morning the HOA president stormed up to my 150-year-old Texas ranch armed with a clipboard like it was a badge and started hollering about how I was destroying the residential structure. No, really, she banned it, fined me, and had my whole solar system cut off without warning. But the funny thing, she never stopped to ask what exactly those panels were connected to. And let me tell you, it was the one thing she couldn't control, not even in her wildest HOA fever dreams. Less than 20 minutes after she flipped that switch, the HOA office was lighting up with angry calls, air conditioners shut down, pools went cold, and her own house started flickering like it was haunted. She had no clue just how big a mess she'd just made. Let me back up a sec. I'm Marcus Thompson, a retired electrical engineer, grew up spending every summer out here with my granddad, who always said energy independence was the same thing as freedom. So when I finally bought back his old ranch after all those years, the first thing I did was put in a massive solar array, 500 gleaming panels catching the Texas sun like a field of tech wildflowers. It wasn't just about self-sufficiency, it was about honoring his memory. I did my homework too, made sure it was all permitted legal, and according to the laws in this state, nobody, not even the mighty Highland Meadows HOA, could tell me otherwise. Or so I thought. Turns out that new neighborhood that sprouted up around my land folks, who'd only been there a handful of years, led by Deborah Whitmore in her power red suit, had other ideas. Deborah showed up one morning with her sister Cheryl trailing behind, lugging a camera that looked like she was filming a nature documentary about suburban drama. Deborah introduced herself like she was issuing a warning. "Mr. Thompson, we need to discuss your installation. Cheryl's over there snapping more pictures of her own feet than my panels." And I'll admit, her channel Highland Meadows Drama was probably getting more of my mug in the background than anything incriminating. Deborah made a big show about aesthetic guidelines, flipping her clipboard open to HOA Section 4.7, declaring my solar panels a visual atrocity. I pulled out my property deed dated 1873 and asked how an HOA born in 2018 could possibly write rules over land older than most Texas towns. For half a second, I saw something almost like panic flicker across her face, but she just doubled down, saying the HOA had legal standing and that I had 30 days to remove the panels or pay a $500 daily fine. 60 days and they'd take me to court for forced compliance. You know what I mean? They're stubborn, and then there's a whole different animal. I told her I'd talk to my lawyer, but she wasn't hearing it. "There will be no compromise, Mr. Thompson. You will regret this." And the two sisters stomped back to their car, Cheryl calling out that she'd gotten great footage for her channel, still not realizing she'd been recording the whole awkward showdown to her backup USB. I stood there staring at those solar panels, thinking about Granddad and how the real danger is folks who mistake authority for wisdom. 3 days later, a letter lands on my porch, Henderson and Associates representing the HOA, warning me to cease unauthorized energy operation. I'm not going to lie, the legalese made my coffee taste like regret. So I called Janet Rodriguez, a property rights attorney with the kind of reputation that makes the other side sweat bullets. When I mentioned Deborah's name, Janet nearly laughed. Oh, her always loved rules when they applied to everyone else. Janet started digging and found that Deborah had sued a dozen families since becoming president. Every single one moved out after, and the HOA snapped up their houses for cheap. But then Janet found something bigger. "Look at this," she says, pulling up corporate records. Turns out Deborah owns a big stake, 15%, in Green Valley Power, the same company supplying the whole neighborhood's electricity. Bought in right after she became president. That explained a lot. Right then I get a text from Cheryl, the sister. "Can we meet? I have something you need to see about my sister's calls with Green Valley Power. Also, do you know how to make my camera stop taking selfies?" Gotta admit, I had no idea if she was clueless or a genius, but I met her anyway. She comes armed with her YouTube live stream and a USB covered in rhinestones, says she accidentally recorded Deborah talking to Green Valley about keeping the backup source off the books. Turns out my solar panels had quietly been feeding power into the whole neighborhood, basically acting as the only backup since the original city plans for a secondary feed were never finished. All this time, every time there was a little extra on the grid, it was coming from my panels. And nobody, not even the HOA, really understood the technical side, except for maybe Deborah. Long story short, the moment Deborah forced Green Valley to cut my solar feed for safety, the entire neighborhood blacked out. Every house, every pool, every refrigerator dead silent in the Texas heat. And let me tell you, it took about 5 minutes for folks to start gathering on the sidewalks, more joining by the minute. By sunset, there were 30-40 neighbors in Deborah's yard demanding answers. She tried to blame me Marcus Thompson's illegal solar installation caused this, but the crowd wasn't having it. Old Mrs. Foster, who's been there since the place was built, cut her off with bullshit. Deborah, the power went out 20 minutes after you killed his panels. We're not stupid. That's when I walked up, pulled out my phone, and with one tap on my monitoring app, reconnected the solar system. The whole neighborhood blinked back to life like I was performing a magic trick. Silence for a beat, then everyone stared at Deborah like she'd just been caught cheating at poker. Even Cheryl stopped streaming for a second, her camera glued to her sister's meltdown. After that, Deborah's grip slipped fast. An emergency HOA meeting was called. Every family showed up, and Cheryl live-streamed the whole mess, comments pouring in from her now thousands of subscribers. Deborah tried to open with, "We're here to address unauthorized electrical installations," but then Robert Chen, the city's electrical engineer, stood up. He dropped the bomb. Highland Meadows has been running on a single feed illegally for years. Marcus's solar panels have been your backup power since 2022. You could hear a pin drop. Margaret Foster, the community's resident queen of common sense, stood up and produced old recordings from HOA meetings, revealing that Deborah had been negotiating secret commissions with Green Valley for years. When Cheryl handed me her USB, we played Deborah's call over the speakers. Keep the source quiet. Make sure Thompson doesn't find out he's powering everyone, and keep my consulting fees coming. Total $340,000 in kickbacks over 7 years. Then I showed everyone the dashboard I'd built tracking every kilowatt used. During peak hours, my panels provided up to 78% of the neighborhood's power. Even at night, it was still close to half. Robert Chen explained it plain. Not stolen by you, the residents, but stolen for you by someone profiting from your ignorance. Then I gave a little demo, showed how I could cut power to individual houses from my phone. You could almost see people realize in real time just how much control Deborah had tried to claim and how much she'd actually lost. The room exploded. Neighbors realized they'd saved thousands each on bills because of my panels. Deborah tried to spin it, called it administrative overhead, but the evidence was all there. Federal tax credits, too, that Green Valley and Deborah had claimed illegally. Within a day, 46 out of 47 families signed a petition to remove Deborah. Margaret Foster took over as HOA president. First act, formalize the solar partnership, pay a fair rate, file the paperwork. Highland Meadows became the first certified solar-powered neighborhood in the county. My panels stayed, and this time everything was above board. Deborah's final move. She sued me for $2.3 million, claiming electrical extortion and weaponizing renewable energy. It was so desperate, it was almost funny. Meanwhile, the FBI had gotten hold of all our evidence, and Green Valley Power was soon facing fraud charges in multiple states. Deborah, in the end, testified against her business partners to avoid jail, but still paid hefty fines and had to do community service. Her empire crumbled overnight. Cheryl, on the other hand, became an accidental celebrity. Her YouTube channel exploded. Folks loved her genuine cluelessness and how she'd single-handedly, by accident, brought down her own sister's corruption. As for me, I got invited to the state capitol to help draft new laws, encouraging solar partnerships, testified in front of lawmakers, and watched other neighborhoods start their own solar programs, all sparked by this one epic HOA battle. Looking back, I can't help but laugh. My granddad always said the people who think they hold all the power never really understand where real power comes from. Turns out it's not about clipboards or rules or fear. It's about creating something that helps your community, about standing your ground, and about neighbors choosing justice over comfort even when it's messy. So if you've ever dealt with a bully in charge, if you've been on the losing end of some power trip, don't back down. Stand up. Tell your story in the comments. Was Deborah right, or was she just greedy? Have you ever fought back and won? Let's get a real debate going, because when regular folks push back against the powerful, that's how you change the world.